Hey everybody, welcome back.
Hello, it's me.
So, we have quite the interesting episode in front of us because we effectively have to talk about the same arc, but not the same arc. It's very strange. So, in what was it? Episode Let me just double check. In episode 24, we had the fight versus Zoro and Mihawk. And everything from there, from episode 25 onwards, is basically different. And in a way, it's kind of neat, but at the same time, I could definitely understand if someone would just like look at that and go like, "Yeah, why did you do this?"
I This episode is one of those episodes where when they do things right, and by my standards, right means following the manga and anime, and what they do wrong, which is playing their hand too early, this is very much an episode of extremes. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, even if it is for world building, and everything that went right was done perfectly.
Yeah, it's like it's such a strange thing and we're going to have to talk about all of them. So, okay, let's just start with this. Let's start with what is exactly the same. And I think that we should start with Sanji's backstory. I think we should talk
That
about.
was amazing.
Okay, so let's talk about the anime adaptation first because no, let's talk about the manga adaptation because I think this is kind of important. Every single time they have shown this backstory, they have done it differently. Like, I have seen 4 different iterations of this backstory, and every single time it is an amazing depiction. So, Sanji is sailing as an orphan on the ship that I believe is later named the Orbit. I can't remember if it's ever named in the episodes or in the manga, but I definitely know that it's later pinged that that ship is called the Orbit.
I don't think it's named in any of the original works because most things weren't. Like we didn't
Yeah.
even know the name of Don Krieg's ship until some of the supplemental material came out of the lore of One Piece, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is what Krieg's galleon is it looks like, and this is what Buggy's ship is called." And a lot of that information isn't even in the anime or manga yet. I
Yeah,
mean,
a lot of that world building is off onto the side because Oda is more interested in setting a scene and setting the tone. Extra stuff is interesting when it comes up, but it's never the main focus.
I just find it
That nitty
interesting on the
gritty is
merit
there
of
though.
yeah, I just find it interesting on the merit of all this time, and despite being in supplemental material, in the main show, you will never hear the name of Buggy's ship.
Yeah, but he will tell you about the buggy cart. Uh,
Muggy Ball.
I kept a special hidden tiny muggy ball in my shoe the whole time. I was like, Buggy, why do you have this? Okay, so Sanji is on the orbit, and he is being laughed at by several of the cooks that are there because the orbit is this like cruise liner that is like very high class. It's basically what the cruise liner in the first episode of the anime is based on, effectively. And the one that Nami was like stealing from some random guy in a blue shirt that I don't think ever got named because Oda's like, why would I name that guy? So
uh,
he's
we'll
sitting
call
there
him
and huh?
we'll call him Blue Man Kuma until we get an actual name.
Blue Man John. So okay, so Sanji is sitting there as he's scraping plates and like getting them clean, and he's chastising the other cooks for eating stuff off of their plates, off of the customers' plates. And he even says like, "I think we even like served like rotten food. Like, what the heck is up with that?" And the cooks are like, "No, Sanji, you gotta live a little. Like, come on. Like what's wrong with you?" And Sanji blatantly says, "This being on this ship is a stepping stone for me to eventually go find the All Blue." And these cooks basically just laugh at him because they're like, "Yeah, every cook has heard of the All Blue. The idea that there is like some place in the world that just magically has every fish known to man, just all swimming in the same place, like that is quite literally a fairy tale. There's no way that that's possible." Regardless of like the fact that a lot of people know that Fishman Island exists and they know the relative location of it, and people could kind of extrapolate that that might be what the All Blue is, but you know, no one actually really cares. It's like
It also,
because the All Blue as a concept might exist, but the idea of going out and searching for it, especially in the Grand Line, is so laughable when you could just like have a nice simple job as a cook on a cruise liner, you know?
yeah, to me, having the other chefs and whatnot talk about the All Blue, to me, sort of ruins the like importance of Sanji believing in it, because in the manga and anime, everyone makes fun of him and he's like, "There's no such thing. There's no such thing as All Blue. You're an idealistic fool." But to have everyone believe it, it just comes across as like weird superstition, and it loses impact.
This is the problem with Oda, what I shall refer to as pre-Logetown writing for Oda, is that he's like, "Oh yeah, Sanji also has a One Piece that he is looking for, except for this is the chef's One Piece. Everyone knows about the One Piece, and every pirate wants the One Piece, but none of them are actually gonna sit down and say, 'I am gonna find the One Piece.' It's like because everyone knows that like to become a great pirate, you're going to eventually find the One Piece. But like that's not the important thing. The important thing is that you're going to become a big pirate and then eventually get the One Piece because you're a great pirate. And so for a Luffy to basically yell out, 'I'm going to become king of the pirates and I shall find the One Piece,' everyone laughs at him because it's like, dude, you're like small fry right now. Like, calm down." And that sort of translates over to Sanji when he is this chef, and every chef knows the idea of having every fish of the sea in one place is fantastic for like culinary like reasons. But is there a reason to go after and find it? Not really. Is like, is it fine to dream? Sure. And that's what they're kind of laughing at him for. It's like, just calm down, have a good life, and don't worry about it too much. And while this is happening, another chef runs in and yells that they are being boarded. And at the time, the cook pirates are boarding the ship. And I'm gonna say right now, I never really I never really got the reason of why they're called the cook pirates in either the anime or in the manga. But then it's like, yeah, his aesthetic has always been that like he's a chef. And
I mean, I
and
mean,
there's even a line. Yeah,
not
and
long after this, we find out about the Rumbar pirates. This whole thing is everyone's a musician. We have the Buggy pirates where everyone is a circus performer. Is it so weird to think that there'd be other themings?
yeah, I mean, technically, you also have the Black Cat Pirates where everyone's are actually a clown. So you have the Cook Pirates who come up, which has the best Jolly Roger of all time, which is just a chicken in a chef's hat. With instead of bones, it's a fork. It's a spoon and fork, and I'm like, that's
I
kind
think
of
it's
cute.
pretty funny. It's pretty funny, honestly.
And like the whole idea is that like Zeph is this like big name guy who's like, "No, we do not steal from other people's plates. We share it evenly, including including your plates. So you shall share your food and your spoils with us since we have joined your dinner table. You know, taking that sort of like idea, kind of flipping it on its head a little bit. But I think
I see what
like
you mean.
one of the fascinating things is the way they kind of depict this. In the manga and the anime, it's really weird because Sanji basically comes up and he tries to attack Zeph, and then Zeph kind of kicks him away because like, what is this little kid doing? You know, it's like, and in the whole scuffle of like trying to like get all the treasure, a giant squall like comes up and basically swallows both ships. And in the manga and the anime, Zeph does the most extra thing of all time, which is jump 30 feet into the air, kick the mast of the ship, uh, and then write it down so that he can try to get to Sanji, which I don't even think works. I think he just did that just to do it.
You live that long. You don't get much opportunities to aura farm, and you don't want your crops to wither.
So in the anime, and as we're going to talk about the Netflix version, uh, he basically saves Sanji, and he basically rescues him and puts him onto this I believe they refer to it as a muffin shaped island at some point, because like the sides of the island were kind of washed away by the sea, and so it's kind of hard to get back onto the top of it after you've climbed down to go gather fish. So Zeph and Sanji are just stranded up there. In the anime, they added an additional scene where after he rides the mast down, he gets stuck underneath a piece of the other ship, and he kind of dislodges himself using the anchor of the ship, which is a very unambiguous like what happened, where you're just like, oh, okay. But I'm gonna hold off on that a little bit because the manga makes it explicitly clear. Um, a lot more clear than I thought than I remember it being. I'm like, geez. Uh, so Sanji is sitting there, and then he sees two bags. And I was like, what's that? As he hands him a bag, and he goes, that is food that will last you about, let's just say about like a week, maybe a little bit more. But you're a chef, and I'm a chef. If we basically, we could ration out our foods pretty well, and we could prepare them even without any real ingredients, that we could stretch this out to about like 20 days. So just try your best. And Sanji looks over and just sees this massive bag, and he goes like, "Wait, why do you have the bigger bag?" And he goes, "Because I'm bigger than you, and I have a bigger stomach." And everyone I have ever seen goes, "No, that makes sense."
No, that's real.
Uh, but then it's like, as Sanji goes away, the chapter ends with Zeph just going, "Well, time to do this," and just slams a rock into his foot. And it's like, what the? I was like, if you're just reading the manga, you're like, wait, why did he do that? It's like if he has food. But the whole idea is that Sanji and Zeph spend 85 days on that rock. They lose so much muscle mass, and they become incredibly withered from this experience. Like Sanji is like thinking about like scraping the leftover food off of the plates as he's sitting there eating moldy bread, and it's just so tragic. And you could definitely see why there is a house rule where it's like, no, you do not waste food. Because like when you go through an experience like that, it's kind of hard for you to see any amount of food just immediately hit the trash. And you kind of get it.
I mean, that's me, IRL. If I see someone throwing away perfectly good food, I'm tilted.
So in the manga, It doesn't happen immediately, and I don't think in the live action version they also didn't have it immediately. But in the anime, this happened. These two things happen immediately, next to each other. So Sanji goes, "I haven't eaten anything in like 2 weeks. I need to eat something, or else I'm gonna starve." And Sanji, in probably one of the most like in one of the creepiest like depicted images of a child is him just slowly approaching Zeph with a knife. And I'm just like, geez, like calm down. It's like you didn't have to go a little all this extra on him. Like you didn't need this. So uh he approaches Zeph and he sees that there's still like a lot inside the bag and he's like, I've been starving over here. I need some of this. As he immediately attacks the bag to like open it up, and Zeph basically doesn't even blink when he does this because the entire bag is full of the treasure that he could scavenge. So for the 85 days, he has been sitting there eating nothing. And Sanji's like, "How are you still alive?" And in every single version, Sanji rounds the corner and sees Zeph without his foot. In the manga, they make this very unambiguous of how this happened, but in the anime, you're kind of like, oh yeah, he did lose that foot. Wait, did he eat it? And then like in the manga and in the live action version, they just like straight up say, "Oh, you ate your own leg? Why would you do that?" And
I think it's from an interesting point of uh the way Zeph loses his foot is not important.
yeah,
Him losing it is important, but how he lost it is not important.
I feel like that the punch in the anime is just taken out of it just a little bit because they don't actually say you ate your own leg. You know, it's kind of like the why didn't you show the moment where Luffy gives himself the scar in the anime? Like we waited until like I think chapter 1000 episode 1000 to properly see that scene animated in the anime of
Well, no, we
him
had
giving himself the scar.
episode of Luffy had it.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, the reanimation around, I want to say right before Sabaudi,
Yeah,
the first Sabaudi.
wasn't it
They did
like
episode
everything up to defeating Buggy was just one
uh,
movie.
well, not really a movie. It was more like an episode and a half that was, they did reanimations for episode of Luffy, which was the retelling of Luffy's trip out to sea. Then there was episode of Zoro, which is the story of Zoro's backstory leading to him joining the crew, and
Which then
finally his
ends
fight
with
with
him
Mihawk.
fighting Mihawk, yeah.
Yeah, and then episode of Nami, which is strictly pretty much the entirety of Arlong Park updated.
I have been told that that is the only one that is good, is the episode of Nami.
It's mostly
Because it's
because it
the
was the
only
only
one that's
one
not
that,
changed.
yeah, well, because the other one suffered from being a little jumpy. Like the Luffy one is fine, but again, it's mostly backstory. You don't get to see a lot of Luffy being Luffy. You don't get to see the Luffy we know in Romance Dawn. It's a
Again,
pre.
this isn't episode of Drum Island where it's just like and then halfway through a crocodile shows up on Drum Island and you're like, "Wait, why is he here?"
Yeah, that didn't happen. What is happening?
Although, when we finally get to the live action episodes of that, you might as well have just watched episode of Drum Island. You're like, "Wait, why are people here that are not supposed to be here?" You know what? I'm gonna just roll with it. It is an interesting set of episodes, and we will eventually get to that when we get to that. But uh, so in the anime, immediately after like wait, no, in all versions, Sanji basically asks like, "Why would you sacrifice your leg for me? Just this dumb kid." And Zeph admits right to his face, "Because I am also a fool who wants to find the all blue. And if I'm gonna sit here and die for my dream, at least I will let someone else live for theirs." And it's kind of powerful. especially when he says, "And we had to save up this money because if it's like, what are we gonna do afterwards?" You know, it's like even if we get saved, then we're gonna have nothing. And he goes, "I'm gonna use this money and I'm gonna buy the world's biggest restaurant, and then I'm gonna just sail it off to the sea, so that no one will be hungry, even in the midst of travel."
Which is an interesting point to think of, because when you say it out loud, you realize how closely it actually aligns with Luffy's admittedly simplistic view of being king of the pirates. Of he wants a world in which all of his friends can have a banquet.
Yeah, but I would actually say that like the key to becoming a great pirate is togetherness.
Oh, absolutely. You
Now,
have to trust your crew implicitly.
even like the most evil pirates basically say we're all in this together, and
Yeah,
that
like
is why
I,
we're great.
despite being absolute scumbags and would do pretty much anything, I can at least say that I don't personally believe that anybody on Blackbeard's crew would betray him.
Yeah, like not even like Kuzan, where it's like he just joined, and I doubt that he would ever betray him.
Well, yeah, it's like sure he left the military, but he didn't betray the military. He left. He let them know, "Hey, I'm done. I'm gonna go join this pirate crew now. Goodbye." And he leaves, and that's that. He didn't, he didn't have some stupid thing where he fought like Sengoku or something. He didn't try to throw hands with Morgan and got kicked out. No, he did it respectfully. Like they have a code.
Yeah, and it's like, and we could eventually get to that when we get to that, but I think that there are a ton of there are a ton of moments where you just sit there and you look at all the characters in One Piece and you just realize that there is a lot of moments in which there are interesting connections to Luffy to apparently I stopped recording halfway through that. So, oh well.
So just let me know where was I, so I know what we were talking about at that moment.
Not entirely sure, to be honest. We were like in the middle of talking about like shared themes and all that kind of stuff. But either way, uh, we need to talk about what the manga and the anime do and how Netflix took the cliff notes and still managed to kind of like talk about the arc without having any of the characters there. So so after Mihawk leaves and everyone is just standing there looking dumbfounded. Uh,
For
they
obvious
just
reasons.
they decide that they are going to quote deploy the fins and put out the outer seating area in for the Baratie as this like giant fin that just comes out from in the water to create this platform so that they can have a fighting area without actually like hurting the Baratie as a ship. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then Patty and Carne dislodge the head of the ship and just sail it around as it just shoots at Krieg. And Krieg shows uh his uh his strength where he just grabs a part of the ship and just throws it. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, I kind of get why people are behind this guy because he's just like, nah, and just like physically manhandles a ship,
It's sort of badass. Not gonna lie.
even if it's just like a pedal boat.
I mean, still, it's bigger than I could throw.
Uh, so Sanji like deflects it with a kick, and and everyone's just like, wow, how'd you do that? And I was like, yeah, don't worry about it.
What, do you not know how to kick?
So, uh, we then have a moment where one of my least favorite characters in all of One Piece show up because of how he just kind of intrudes into the story. So we have Mihawk, and between Mihawk and Sanji's backstory, and then a little bit after, we have to deal with this absolute clod of a human being known as Pearl.
Was that a Steven Universe reference?
So Pearl is such an interesting character design. They just straight up ripped him off for Pirate Warriors. So whenever you have like a squad of enemies and you want them to be more defensive than aggressive, they basically just give him Pearl's shields that they just wear onto their body. And it's kind of funny that I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't like the fact that these guys are here.
I think it's
Eh,
sort of funny. Like, at least it's being used. I mean,
Yeah. So
would you
Pearl,
prefer that the character just gets ignored forever, like half of the Black Cat pirates?
yes, in fact. So Pearl's involvement in the live action adaptation of this is being a corpse on the ground during Mihawk's scene where he is being called by Garp as he takes out uh Krieg, who shows off his cannon and shows off all that kind of stuff, and we still have the scene where Geen shows up, but there's a lot less of a connection between Geen and those pirates. But
Hooray for Gian.
the idea that it's like, oh yeah, there's Pearl, he's just dead on the ground, is just so funny to me. I was like, at least he is included.
Was he?
So, um, you have you have Pearl. He wears uh Target shields all over his body. So these rounded shields that he uses, like on his like arms, in the center of his chest, and on his legs, are these rounded buckler type shields. And he starts clacking together like one of those cymbal monkeys, and he goes, "I am the wall. I am the Iron Wall Defense Pearl, and I have never bled ever in battle." And then you find out, it's apparently mistranslated that he's the second mate. He is the second fleet commander. So like, so you basically have um Krieg, and then you basically have like delegated like 3 or 4 people, and two of those people that he delegates immediately from him for his like group of ships. One of them is Geen and one of them is Pearl, and we do not meet the other ones. But like, it's very important to know that this guy controlled multiple ships, and it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, multiple ships. Apparently never got hurt in battle, which either means he's a big pussy.
Yeah, or like very indicative of like how oddly effective he is. So, due to shenanigans, Luffy flies back from like interacting with Krieg and slams into the back of Pearl's head, making him jolt forward and slam onto the shield that is on his chest, causing his nose to bleed, which immediately makes him go into burning Pearl to fire Pearl mode, in which he lights himself on fire.
On a wooden boat in the middle of the ocean.
And then in
His
one
answer
panel,
was to light himself on fire.
they explain that his backstory is that he grew up in the jungle, and this is just his defense mechanism. And I'm like, okay, cool. Doesn't make him interesting at all, though. I don't know why you did this. And like every once in a while, like Pearl will come in for like a cheap shot, like when their back was turned, he clapped the shields on his hands over Sanji's head to get like a cheap shot in on him, and all that kind of stuff. But like mostly after the Fire Pearl moment, Pearl's not really that important to anything happening in this plot. Like in either version. So we're kind of just gonna gloss over his entire involvement because I think it's a little bit more important to talk about what Geen is doing. So, before talking about like what Krieg does in this fight, so Geen is revealed to be the first fleet commander. So basically, his first mate, and he goes, "I will." Is like, I do not care of anything that happened. I have to, under just pure obligation, stop you from hurting Krieg. So I am gonna defend you. And he pulls out his two tonfas that end in these balls that make me think of the Tonitrus from Bloodborne. Which now just makes me wish that he rubbed them together and just the static electricity just like zoomed around him. As like, oh no, the demon has his ball tonfas out. Oh, what are we
No,
gonna do?
they can't use the electricity because that's for a different one. That's for a different villain here in a bit.
But yeah, uh, so Geen is fighting with Sanji, and they get some pretty good blows in. It's really neat choreography overall. Like I can't do a play-by-play onto it, but there's like a moment where like Geen does like the Yakuza sitting down pose, and he just keeps the tonfa over his neck, going, "I will hurt you if you move." And then Sanji goes, "Oh, don't worry," as he just without any effort flips up into the air so he's above him. And it's a good choreographed like fight overall, but like the main interesting part of this whole fight is that after fighting for a little bit, uh Geen basically starts breaking down emotionally, and then he looks at the Krieg and he goes, "I'm sorry, sir, I physically cannot fight this guy. Give me someone else to fight. I will kill literally anybody here, just not this man." As it keeps cutting back to the fact that Sanji gave him food. Because as he says, this is the first man to ever show me kindness. Which is,
Which is
uh,
crazy to think about because it again we go back to the reinforcement of the reason Krieg lost is that he doesn't respect his crew.
yeah. Like, and you see this as like a major showcase when he goes, "Well, okay then," and he takes one of his pauldrons off. In the manga, he already had it off because he was using it to shoot iron stakes at Luffy the whole time. But in the anime, this is the first time he pulls one of his pauldrons off, and he and the Jolly Roger on the center of it opens up, whereas like the mouth becomes the place where everything fires from, as everyone on Krieg's crew knows exactly what this is. He is about to deploy MH5, which is what is said to be one of the deadliest uh poison gases that they have. So he's literally using like chemical weapon type stuff, in which he has supplied every member of his crew with at least one gas mask to put onto it, so that there isn't as much friendly fire.
Well,
As as you kind of realize,
I'm gonna I gotta correct you. He remember he uses plungers.
oh my gosh, the poisonous suction cups. that he darts them with. Yeah, this arc is
Okay,
infamous for the 4 kids censoring. Whether it be like, it's like, yeah, we could show characters getting like beat up and like all that kind of stuff, and we could talk about like heinous stuff happening to people, like getting like hit with like poisonous gas and
no,
stuff.
we
But
we gotta
no,
turn
we
Sanji's cigarette into a lollipop.
yeah, we cannot have cigarettes in the lollipops, and we cannot have Mihawk's hilt be too long because people might think that there are Christian undertones to this Japanese series.
Well, I mean, for him it would make sense, seeing as he's literally just based on Dracula.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is I don't remember who said this once, but someone did point out it would actually be a much more interesting world in which the poison suction cups for real. And hear me out why. Someone pointed out that he is from the Grand Line, and if he got far enough into the Grand Line, which he's apparently has, which he's been to the New World. Don Krieg has been to the New World. I think it'd be really interesting if he had the poison suction cups, and instead of the whole shield thing the entire crew was going for, it'd be much more interesting to have them all using effects based on fishmen they knew, with Don Krieg's thing being a blue ring octopus. Not only would this give credence to the things that you find in the Grand Line are utterly bizarre to a normal human, but it would also give a lot more, like, a little more taste of what we're about to see in Arlong Park with the fishmen and just how wildly different they are to normal people.
I can kind of see that. Yeah. Uh, so all of Krieg's men, including Krieg himself, all don gas masks. I do kind of like how Krieg's gas mask is built into the backside of the pauldron, so he just like pulls it off and just slams it onto his own face, so it's also made of gold or brass. I forget if they explicitly say that it's brass. But I would like to say that it's just like brass that's just coated, that's just like, electrum coated. But like, either way, there is he deploys the gas, and like Luffy is like trying to find like a mask for himself and like one for Sanji, as a mask clatters onto the ground next to him, just like in a really quick cutaway. As the gas settles, you realize what happened. Sanji threw the mask back at Luffy, and because of that, Gin grabbed a different mask because, he threw his own mask into the ocean um because of loyalty reasons. So the mask that was then thrown at him, the extra mask that was thrown at him, he used the mask that Sanji didn't throw and slammed it onto Sanji's face so that he could survive. And I'm like, man, how cool. And like the entire time, like Gin is like seconds away from death, and he's like, I'll go die on my own time, thank you. I'm not allowed to die on duty.
Dying is gay. I'm out.
I forget if they say it in the manga, but they definitely say it in the anime that when Gin is basically pulled off to the side, they give him something that people often take for food poisoning, which, not the same thing, but at least they try to do some kind of reason to why Gin would survive this. Where it's like, yeah, inhale all this mustard gas. You're gonna live. Don't worry about it. Oh, well, it wouldn't be mustard gas, so it's purple. So probably grape gas, whatever.
I mean, it'd be much more interesting if there was a tie-in that it was actually made by Caesar Clown later, but it was very
Well,
quickly
I mean,
forgotten that it
Caesar
wasn't.
Clown's gas is also purple.
See, that's what I mean. Like,
No, if I remember correctly, on when they eventually do get to Punk Hazard, he explicitly says that he uses MH5 in his gas that he turns into, so that he could move through someone and just deploy the gas right into their body through osmosis. I distinctly remember them bringing back up the MH5, which, uh, interesting. That is really interesting. That like that is the one thing I remember about that arc, and not the bird lady. Um, but the well, that's basically Gein's involvement. So now let's actually talk about Krieg.
Ugh,
What
what a
is
waste
your
of
personal
potential.
thoughts on Krieg as a character? I'm not talking about Krieg's abilities because Krieg is this like I almost called him a technomancer, but he is a guy who, even though he has strength, he relies upon gadgets and trickery to take the upper hand. Like his cloak, he can automatically turn into a bed of thorns that he basically just wraps around himself that would work against normal people, but Luffy is too stupid to let that stop him. Or things like I slam my pauldrons together and turn that into a melee weapon if I need to go if ranged options aren't really a possibility. Or yeah, I have a gun, but I also have a hidden gun under my pauldron so I could shoot you with that one as well, which I do kind of like in the Netflix version. It comes out like it's the Predator missile. Predator no. The Predator like shoulder mounted cannon. And I'm like, "Whoa." I was like, "That's not quite what that was like in the anime, but I will accept it." Whereas like this just tiny cannon just flips out from his shoulder and it just looks really funny.
I think he's a pretty good character in terms of showing what people are willing to do to get ahead in this world. If you do not have a crew that is made of, you know, 1.5 billion devil fruit users like the Straw Hats.
So now we get to talk about the most fun part of One Piece discourse. Let's talk about politics. Krieg is one of the most overtly fascist characters I have ever seen in fiction.
You're saying that when we have Hohenheim from Full Metal Alchemist,
Yeah, but
we have the
he's
Survey
a
Corps from
you can't say that
Attack on Titan.
Hohenheim is a fascist and then look over to actual Hitler like standing right over there.
That one was
And I'm not
weird.
talking about like Bradley. I'm talking about actual Adolf Hitler from the movie.
Oh no, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But it's like uh it was like out of like most characters in fiction, you don't see just like a straight fascist like depicted in media. Mostly because they will either just go, "Oh yeah, this guy's just a Nazi." How can you tell? Oh, he has a swastika on his chest, dude. And it's like, it's not really that. It's you understand that Krieg is a man who heard might makes right. So if I want to get ahead in life, I must be the mightiest pirate of all time. Not strongest. He will use every ounce of force to take over whatever he wants. He goes into a situation where he is on the losing end. He requires help from another person, and the way that he repays them is saying, I will take your stuff because I need to get ahead. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to steal from you. Like, automatically, you go, man, what a scumbag. And then as the story goes on, he explicitly says, I think in the anime and the manga like jumble up their scenes a little bit. Like uh they do like the Luffy runs across the fallen mast to Krieg like two times and they like switch up like what happens when, and I can never remember like in what order they're supposed to be in half the time. But you have Don Krieg, which is literally sitting there saying, I need to use as much force as possible to get what I need because if I don't, I'm going to look weak. And he turns to his crew and he says, any person who thinks that being cold weak is enough of an insult to be upset just shows your weakness. And stuff like that makes you like sit back and you go, why is Don Krieg written like this? But then you realize that there is something really fascinating about the fact that you look at Don Krieg and then you go, Don Krieg did not last like 20 minutes uh in the Grand Line. He had
Well,
all of these ships.
specifically,
He had all of these
specifically
men.
the New World.
Uh, yeah. Either way, but like he either way, like you have Don Krieg who had 50 galleon, 50 galleons as an armada. He had this massive ship. He has this impressive strength. He has all of these gadgets. He has like all of these fail safes to combat, but he still cannot stop someone that has more passion than he does. Because Luffy has too much passion to stop. Whenever one of Don Krieg's like moves break, he instead insults the item for breaking, you know? And like his armor gets rended off of his body, like he loses his spear, and so he instead resorts to using a net that's like hidden inside of his hand uh to drag Luffy underwater, and like all of this kind of stuff. Uh, and you look at Don Krieg and you go, what a despicable man. He had no right having this much loyalty from his men.
Oh, absolutely. He should have been turned on a lot earlier. But I will give him credit with what he knows of the Grand Line and the rest of the world outside of, you know, the where he's at. It does sort of make a lot of sense for if you're gonna go against a devil fruit user, splash them with seawater, hit them with sea prism stone, throw their ass into the ocean. Like that is an easy win.
Yeah, but it's like it's really interesting because eventually we get into the meta that is everyone needs to have a devil fruit. If you don't have a devil fruit, you need to have hockey. If you don't have hockey, you have to have some sort of tactical advantage to be able to fight both of those things at once from both directions, and
Sometimes in combination.
more than likely you will not succeed.
Yeah. The ones I can think of that actually can go up against them without a devil fruit or hockey is weirdly enough like Sentamaru. Sentamaru held up against Luffy
Yeah, and
pretty well.
Centaur's like whole thing is that he uses a very special form of hockey to basically like push through someone's defenses and just hit them internally. And
Well, Sentamaru doesn't use like any hockey. That's
no,
like their whole thing.
I was pretty sure that like hockey was like first introduced through Sentamaru.
No, hockey was first introduced through Rayleigh.
Huh. Weird. Uh
Technically, it was introduced way earlier with Garp because he was able to punch Luffy and make it hurt. And even though he disguised it as nothing stops a grandfather's love, it was actually him using hockey. No, Rayleigh was the first one to use it in Sabaudi.
weird. Uh uh Technically Shanks, but we could get into that later. But
No, that was just raw aura. He didn't need to waste Conqueror's hockey on that sea beast. He just looked at it and he was like, "Bro, I'm
okay.
him."
So, Don Krieg has like his armor rent, all of his like stuff gone, and all he could do is basically just flail and yell that he is the strongest as his eyes are just blank as he's just in a blind rage, and his men are just like attempting to hold him back fruitlessly, and then Geen basically just straight up decks him in the chest, and he goes, well, I think we have enough for today, we're gonna go. It's like And you do kind of realize that, like, Don Krieg is explicitly written to be pathetic. Because
Yeah,
it
but
doesn't
in an
matter how
important way.
strong you are, it doesn't matter how much might you have to force on others, you will lose if you do not have conviction. And it's really
And not even just
fascinating.
conviction.
Uh, it's so fascinating because you do kind of look at Don Krieg and you do kind of look at Luffy and you realize how much of how much of the like political undertone that is One Piece as a whole, you do kind of realize that a lot of it started with the way that Don Krieg is written. He is literally written to be effectively a straw man to be knocked down. And he has everything going for him and he loses because he physically cannot beat Luffy.
And it's important because if someone can't get far in the Grand Line and you lose to them, you're not making it to the Grand Line.
Yeah. Um so now let's talk about Netflix. Netflix decided that they were going to do a few interesting things with this arc. And I both vibe but also completely understand why they did it and then also get a little bit disappointed. Because I rewatched this arc knowing that like I didn't really like Krieg as a villain as much, but I kind of came out of rewatching Baratier as a whole and going, nah, I still enjoyed this more than Syrup Village though.
Yeah, I can see that.
But like I'm like, okay, so Krieg is not here. Nami didn't leave. So they don't have to like do like a oh hey Usaku came in on like a panda shark or whatever it's called to basically like lead us back over there as like the weirdest sort of like well we need to have some way for him to be able to know where he's going. And Netflix said, "Okay, how do we get the crew to the Konomi Islands?" Well, Nami straight up tells them where she's going. Uh, and then it's like, well, no, that would be weird. Okay, so in the anime and manga, Nami steals the ship. They explicitly know where Nami is going because she's going after Arlong. Because Johnny and Usaku know where Arlong is because they have his wanted poster. They kind of know a lot about everyone that has bounties. They're gonna go at they know where he is, so they're following Nami closely in that little like dinghy that they have from the Baratier. No, it's Johnny and Usaku's ship that was tied to the rock. That's what it was. And the dinghy from the Baratier is what Luffy takes, right? So you have them closely following. They get to they get to uh the Konomi Islands, and then Usaku comes back to tell them where they went. And then we kind of get caught up with everything as the Arlong Park arc continues.
Yeah, it sounds right, because, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, it's been a bit.
And I kind of sat there and went, "What a weird conceit." And I was like, I don't like how this is written in the anime and the manga. It just feels like a massive ass pull, you know? Like, because it's like, well, we have to get to like the next island because I already wrote all this stuff. I don't really know how they're gonna get over there. I'm gonna just send Usaku on a like uh with a fish strapped to him. But in the Netflix version, they didn't do the arc. So Nami's still there. and they're looking after Zoro, who is now like in basically a coma, and she's just sitting there as she's just bouncing like uh bouncing her worries off of Luffy. But before we talk about that, I kind of want to talk about one of my favorite scenes in all of season one, which is uh Luffy basically gets sent back to the ship. And he says the really interesting line, "I am not hungry, Nami," which is a very like, oh shit, uh, something's wrong with Luffy, type of line of all time. Uh,
Like me saying I'm not hungry, you know something's wrong.
so Sanji is sitting there and he's preparing food for the upcoming like brunch that's happening. And Zeph basically walks up and goes, like, "What are you doing?" And he goes like, "Well, Patty has food poisoning. Uh, a- and I don't think you're gonna want to prepare all of these dishes by yourself. So just let me help you." And goes, "Fine." As both of them just start like cutting food together and like having this sort of like not quite father, not quite son moment as they're like preparing food and they're like suggesting ingredients, and Zeph basically goes, "Oh, we gotta put oregano." And Sanji says the line that has stuck with like most people that have watched the live action: "Oregano is for savages. Do not add that."
Which is horrible because I love oregano.
So, Luffy basically barges in as he's just blathering, going like, we really need help because Zoro's injured." And so it's like, okay, we're gonna grab all these materials. There's no doctor here, so I'm gonna have to do like field dressing. As Zeph basically walks up as he uses fish skin to stitch Zoro back together, which is actually like a first aid maneuver that was on real like pirate ships.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm like, that's really cool. And
right?
there's this really funny bit where he's like, okay, there's like we got I got my knife, I got my like sewing kit, I got the fish, and I got my best whiskey. And I was like, oh, to disinfect the wounds. It goes, no, that would be a waste, as he just drinks it. Can I talk about him for a little bit? Okay, uh so Craig Fairbrass is the guy who plays Zeph. And I love his performance throughout all of these episodes, including like his inclusion in an upcoming scene with Garp in the next episode. And the stuff in the previous episode. I loved his performance as Zeph. It is one of the highlights of this entire like show so far.
Really?
So the way that Craig Fairbrass got involved with this series um is that Sanji's actor on a show that he was doing, or movie. I think it was the movie Villain. Uh, that is where he met Craig Fairbrass like on set, and they kind of had this like back and forth, and they had a lot of chemistry with each other. But like, Sanji wasn't too big of a role. Craig Fairbrass was like a well known guy because like he was on the EastEnders, he was in Cliffhanger, he was in Queen and Country. You know,
He
it's
had an
like,
actual resume.
yeah. And might I remind you, he is also the voice of Ghost from Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
The original or the
uh
remake?
yeah, in the original. So whenever you hear calling AC-130, that's Craig Fairbrass.
That's Zeph.
Yes.
Hmm.
Uh so I just wanted to bring that up because it's a very funny piece of reminder lore that
Reminder lore is wild.
Zeph sees flaming like the flaming pearl shots like coming towards him, and he says counter UAV as he just kicks them out of the air with his peg leg.
Well then, definitely a set of words that just came out of your mouth.
Okay, so going back on the topic, um, when Sanji was auditioning for the role and they were like doing all the stuff, he went up to the casting director and he said, "Do you know who you need to get on board?" And they're like, "What?" And he offered Craig Fairbrass to come in and play Zeph because they already had this chemistry with each other. And they're like, "Okay, let's see how this goes." And they did the mock-up of them cooking food together because they were both in um they both together both separately were in shows about chefs, so they already knew how to do the cooking techniques. So they were just sitting there just preparing food with each other, just doing this banter back and forth, and it's like, oh no, these guys actually have chemistry.
So what you're
So,
saying is these guys need to be in like a live action Food Wars
oh my
adaptation.
gosh, could you imagine Sanji's voice actor as the head of that like house, the guy who's like a chronic nudist.
Oh God,
He just
Ishiki?
shows up in just the apron and goes, "Hello, guys."
I don't think the universe is ready for that.
To be fair, Task is a very hot looking dude. Um,
You heard it here, folks.
uh, so after they patch Zoro up and they're sitting there, uh, with Luffy just like sitting there, just like dry rag polishing Zoro's wandering itchy monkey, as he calls it.
Hate that.
Uh Sanji sits there and goes, "You know what? I'm going to tell you my backstory." So he sits there and he tells the whole backstory about all the stuff. I also really like how the way they introduce Zeph in the backstory is really cool, where it's like where you just hear like people just being slaughtered outside. The door opens as you see Zeph's bloody legs as he just walks into the room, and it's like, jeez. I
Red
was like,
shoes, Zeph.
red shoes, Zeph. I hate the early Viz translations. It was like, oh, it's Zolo.
Fucking goddamn.
Uh,
I forgot about that one.
yeah, I don't think that they ever start saying Zoro in like the Viz translations of One Piece until the time skip. So
That is
it's like,
correct.
ugh. But like, okay, so he's telling the story, and whoever in the costuming department made this change should get some kind of raise. Because Zeph walks out as he has these double bandoliers of herbs and spices that he just goes, "Oh, what's this food?" As he tries, goes, "No, no, no." And he takes out like two or three of them. And he's just like seasoning the stuff. As he's like, "Oh, that's much better." As
Well, yeah,
young,
his rank in the military was colonel.
I'm waiting for what the pun is.
I already said it. He's a colonel,
Like corn kernel or like what are we talking
as in
about?
Colonel Sanders.
Okay. Uh, as instead of Sanji being like kicked by Zeph multiple times across the deck, Sanji comes around the corner with a kitchen knife and yells oregano is for savages as he tries to shank him in the side, and it's just so funny, and it gets a laugh out of me every time. Uh, by the way, really cute inclusion into season two. Because I watched the like behind the scenes like set tour in the kitchen set. You can't see it in a lot of shots, but written on like a whiteboard type of thing is needed ingredients, where it's like, this is all the ingredients we need and like want, and one of the things is oregano, and it's crossed out multiple times, and I'm like, that's cute. Uh, like kind of carrying over that joke from season one, and And like I said, like Craig Fairbrass, like really nailed Zeph's performance uh in live action One Piece, especially during the flashback scene. Like him talking about the all blue, like actually makes me tear up a little bit. It was like, dang, you really nailed this. It was like it's a really good performance. And again, every version of Sanji's backstory is immaculate. I love every single time they depict it. And it then cuts back to Sanji and Luffy sitting together in that room, and Sanji goes, "You know what it's like to be told that that a person willingly gave one of their limbs to save you?" And Luffy pauses and goes, "I actually kind of do." As they both have this like interesting look as you realize that the parallels between Sanji and Luffy not just having the same sort of dream of I shall find the One Piece, I shall find the All Blue, you also have this quasi parental figure who loses a limb and says, I must pass on my dreams to the next generation. It's kind of neat. It's kind of neat the like thematic parallels between these two characters to kind of show and mirror how these things work. You know,
Yeah.
uh, so in live action Netflix, this is where Arlong the Saw decides to show up to Baratier, which even from the preview trailers before the season came out, I saw people who are really into One Piece see that part of the trailer and go, "What do you mean Arlong shows up to the Baratier?" And now it kind of makes sense where it goes, "Oh, they need some reason to get Nami back over to Konomi Village, to the Konomi Islands after this." So Arlong just shows up, and we're gonna get into the other stuff that Arlong does, but Arlong is like, they basically ask like, "So Arlong, how did you know that we were here?" As he just pulls Buggy's head from in a bag, and it's like, "Hey, um, I had been bugging you this whole time, with my own ear, and so that's how we kind of found you." And it goes, "Oh, that's mildly unpleasant." And Arlong is like, "Well, I need my map. I'm gonna get my map." And then Nami shows up with his map and goes, "I was part of the Arlong Pirates, so I'm gonna go with him." And in a sort of way, it's a very we're gonna get to the episode later, but it's a good replace. It's not okay. It's not a good, but it's a suitable replacement for the scene where Usopp has to infiltrate Arlong Park to go find Nami, and then Nami has to pretend to injure uh to injure Usopp so that they could both get out of this situation with them both being alive. Because there was no way that Usopp would live fighting any of the like higher ranking like fisherman pirates. So it's like so kind of makes sense. But it's an interesting version of the fight where it's like Arlong and Luffy are having this fight that carry over from inside the Baratier to outside the Baratier on like the scattered ships that are around. And then Arlong uses uh his his abilities as a fishman to turn water into a weapon. It's not like darts where he's able to like grab water and literally shoot it off like a bullet. but him basically slapping the water and able to just knock Luffy flat onto his back is important to know. Like, this is the type of strength we're dealing with. And uh and so Arlong is there. Nami has decided to show that she has been a double agent the whole time, goes with Arlong. Sanji does the scene from the anime and the manga where he dives into the water to save uh Luffy at the end of defeating Krieg, and they pull him back up, and then everything that happens afterwards is mildly interpreted from the manga. And we're gonna get to that in a bit. But I do find it kind of interesting that things uh like what was it? It was things like Zeph's peg leg being broken in the middle of the fight, or like I said, Sanji having to dive into the water to rescue Luffy, or Luffy's um base attack not really working because he has to kind of think of a different way to fight this enemy. I was like, all still kind of happens. It's just now against Arlong that then leads into a rematch later. And at first, when I first watched this episode, I sat there and said, you know what? Suitable replacement for Krieg. I don't really like Krieg as a character, so anytime I don't see him is funny. But now that I really think about it, there are stuff from the anime and the manga that I do kind of miss. Like all the stuff with like Gin fighting Sanji is completely gone. You also have stuff like Luffy just slowly breaking him down, and then him going like, I wasn't trying to hit you, I was trying to hit your spear, as like the spear breaks. Like, stuff like that's really cool. And I do kind of feel bad that we're missing those important aspects to the Baratier as an arc. But I think what most people remember about Baratier is not Krieg's fights. It is always, oh yeah, Baratier. That's where like Zoro fought Mihawk, and then they have the tearful goodbye. You know, it's just rather fascinating. Uh, it's just rather fascinating that it's just a like when you just kind of think about it, uh, there are like at first I wasn't missing any of the stuff, but now that I've kind of looked back onto it, I'm like, do I actually not like this episode? There are some stuff to kind of be like mildly upset that they didn't do in this episode. I'll freely admit that, but at the same time, um what was needed in these episodes was there, and what um it's weird. It really is kind of looking Barati as a massive cliff notes of the only thing that we needed is the stuff involving Sanji. So anything not involving Sanji or the Mihawk fight kind of just gets like drowned out, which feels weird.
Disagree, as you know, firmly with a lot of the stuff they've done in live action.
Yeah. It was like this is one of the few times where I sat back and went, "Oh, I actually did miss this. Weird." especially when I didn't think I was going to miss it initially. But even stuff like Krieg's Cape of Thorns, like I kind of got a chuckle out of it, like, oh yeah, it's like I wrap myself in this like wall, impenetrable wall of spikes, you cannot get through it, and Luffy just punches his way through it to just deck him in the face, and everyone is just like, and everyone's like, how can he do that? And it cuts to like several of the chefs that had dived into the water to like avoid the poison, and like a few of the chefs are just flicking their hand in pain, just going, "Oh, that would hurt. Oh, why'd you do that?" You know what I also miss? I also miss the really quick flashes of backstory of like as Sanji is kind of like packing up, him and Zeph are remembering the good times of like when they uh put the ship together. Like Sanji looking at the like minor cuts, the minor like still visible cuts that are on his thumb from when he like would royally mess up and take chunks out of his finger, like trying to peel potatoes. Uh, Only for Zeph to like bonk him with his hat, or or things like, "Do you want to get mature? Here's a cigarette, kid." And then he would smoke the cigarette and goes, "Why are you doing that?" And he goes, "You gave me the cigarette." Like, what do you mean? And like kind of explaining where he got his nicotine addiction. Even the stuff like uh Patty and Carne being like, "We were fired from like our last 50 jobs, and this is the last place that took us, so we're going to be eternally grateful for that." Like stuff like that I really did miss from the goodbye. But the one thing that I will state that I miss the most is the most pivotal scene of Sanji's goodbye from Baratier, which is, of course, the soup, which is also the name of the chapter that this is from, in which Sanji and Luffy, after talking about, like, do you want to join the crew? And Sanji goes, nah, I think I'm going to stay here. And then Luffy goes, well, I can't force him to go with me, so I have to wait for him to say yes. And, and so what happens is that the entire crew is sitting there like after everything has been like cleaned up and like they're getting ready. Everyone's just like trying the soup as Patty stands up and says, "Who made this?" As Sanji says, "Oh yeah, I made that." And then everyone collectively spits out the soup and then just dumps it on the ground. Zeph then like quietly just finishing his soup, standing up, and then dropping the bowl, saying, you really need to stop making bad soup, Sanji." As in the anime, he does like some weird like flippy dippy bullshit outside the door, but like normally he just like, leaves and like runs out. As uh as the camera then cuts back to Luffy as he's drinking the soup, and he's like, I don't understand what's wrong with the soup. As everyone just goes, yeah, it's good soup. As Luffy's like, I don't get it. As as then they then try to tell him, we want Sanji to feel as unloved as possible so he could leave without any regrets. Because
I think it's an important scene. It's amazing.
yeah,
It's such a good way to do it.
it is a very important scene that I am kind of sad that
They just
that
don't do it in the
they
live action.
yeah. The replacement scene is effective and it's still pretty good, but I miss the scene. So Zeph is sitting there with like a pair of crutches because he has to get his peg leg fixed. Uh, I do kind of like how they just put like a bandage over the peg leg and now it's fine. In the anime, it's very funny, but it's like uh, so Zeph is like moving with crutches as Sanji is just trying to clean up from like the mess that Arlong and his pirates made. As Zeph is like, no, I do not need you here. I do not need you here right now. It's like, what do you mean? It's like we have like a large party tomorrow. It was like a lot of things need to be cleaned up, and you're out of commission. I need to take on responsibility. And Zeph basically says, I do not want you here because you need to be elsewhere right now. And they have this moment where it's like, uh, where this also comes across in the anime and manga a little bit, but I do like how they kind of spell this out, where it's where Sanji says, "I want to follow my dreams," and then Zeph yells at him, "Following your dreams is staying here. Go with that chore boy out to sea and find the all blue. You need to go do this because staying here is quitting your dreams. I do not need you here. Go."
Yeah,
And
it's a lot more direct. It's a lot more tell don't show.
yeah, but man, I love the chemistry that is just in that scene. It's so powerful. But it just doesn't feel the same without the soup because the soup is so good because like everyone just starts getting like extra like things of it. I was like, man, I should have finished that soup. I shouldn't spilled the rest of that. Give me like another one. As it cuts to Sanji outside the room as he's just like tearing up, just like smiling. That it's like, okay, they did actually like the soup. I understand what they're trying to do, and like all of that kind of stuff. But the scene that is mildly still the same is still here. So Sanji gathers up all of his stuff and he meets Luffy out onto the boat. In the anime and the manga, it's on the little sloop that they have uh from the Baratie that Johnny and Usaku are going to bring back after all this is said and done because the crew is going to go off to Town after this. Uh, but they're all getting ready to go, and in the live action version, it's still the Going Merry because the Going Merry is still there with like Usopp and Zoro now awake. Which can I just say that's so funny of a scene where Zoro is just like, "Oh man, you're awake," and then he hugs him, and then Zoro goes, "Oh, ow," and then like uh and then Usopp runs in going, "Zoro, I wasn't worried. Don't worry about that." It's like thanks for your input, Usopp. Again, the character dynamic moments are always great in the Netflix version. It's just the actual plot sequences that I often have a problem with is what they include and how they include it, but the actual character dynamics are perfect. So it's like it's this like catch 22, It's I got the characters and I got the vibe. It's just the scenes are different. And sometimes the scenes were the important part. So they're gathering up to go, and in the anime, the Netflix version, like Sanji is like trying to make a scene, but everyone is just standing outside waiting for him. Just like they have to pass him as they go to the ship. And in the Netflix version, like Zeph kind of like limps out on his crutches to kind of look over as for the first time in the entire arc, Zeph says, "Hey Sanji, keep your feet dry." And Sanji pauses, and in the in the anime and the manga, he just like slowly like comes to tears, and then he does like a very deep dogeza, like head onto the floor, just saying, "Thank you, Chef Zeph. I will never forgive you." In the live action version, they do a very interesting interpretation of this because, you know, that's not culturally like very recognizable in English. So how do you do this scene in English where Sanji is trying to keep a cool head and he goes, "Goodbye, Zeph. I don't need you. In fact, I put up with your shit all these years, old man. I do not need this." But as he's saying that, he's just slowly breaking down and crying, and then as he's fighting back tears, he says, "I owe you my life." And fuck, that is such a powerful like scene. And I instantly became endeared to Taz Skylar as an actor. Where I'm like, he is like doing the scene perfectly, and it works, and I am all for it. In the live action version, they then have this like little like moment afterwards where it's like, okay, so how are we gonna get the Nami still? Like we still have to do that. As Luffy then goes, "Oh, guess what I picked up?" As he like pulls out the bag that still has Buggy's head. So Buggy's head is just sitting there on their desk as they're just like, "I guess we're doing this now." Uh, can I just say, I was like, we're gonna get into it a little bit more in the next episode. Having Buggy be in the season a little bit more is kind of neat because Buggy as a character always kind of sat in the back of fan polls, but everyone kind of liked Buggy. Um, because Buggy as a character is what happens when you make the villain character comedic relief in their own villainy. So it's like anything they do is more seen as a joke than actually like harmful. But then you remember that this guy's like actually just like a cold-blooded murderer who just murdered like half a town of people. But then you know, it's funny because you know, he's like just arms and legs and a head as he's being chased around by a large bird. Uh you know, stuff like that's just always kind of funny where it's like, "Oh, I get it." But it's like I do wonder. I do wonder if they played Buggy's card just a little bit too much. Where it's like Buggy being here for like the entire season felt interesting and I liked it, but I'm not sure if it was because I'm already endeared to Buggy because I've seen how he acts in Impel Down and in Marineford, and I know what he does after the time skip. And I know that a lot of people who got into watching One Piece because of the live action, like they also really liked Buggy, but the scenes basically just fast tracked into the endearing quality of Buggy, just not in the same way. It's weird. I don't know how to describe it. You know. I'll think about something by the next episode. But it's just strange. Because you have this almost surreal moment where you kind of just take in everything that happened uh in in this episode because we didn't even talk about like Kobe's side story at all where it's like, oh yeah, like Mihawk shows up back to Garp's ship to basically tell him off saying, you technically don't own me. It was like, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm also gonna drop that I understand that that's your grandson, dude. It's like, did you really think I was gonna kill him? It's like every one of your family is just weird and interesting. Like, why would I kill someone like that? You know, it's like it's strange. Uh, I kind of don't like the Kobe scenes in this episode, and it does kind of feel like this intermediary step uh to everything. You know, it's like either way. Let's get to actually rating these episodes, okay? So
Yep.
let's start with the manga. I would say that manga wise, I am going to give the Baratier arc, or at least the manga, uh, I'm going to give it. Oh man, where is it? No, not that one. Uh, you know what? I'm going to say that I have I have some problems with the manga, and I have even more problems with the anime. I think what I'm gonna do is that I am going to give both the manga and the anime as high of a silver as I could possibly give these episodes. Like I mentioned it before, Baratie is one of my favorite arcs. Like, but I feel like the actual like fight with Krieg just kind of feels like background noise to like the cool parts that are actually the the parts about the arc that I like. But then like when those parts are removed, it's kind of like saying, "Hey, did you like this cordon bleu?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was pretty good." It's like, would you just like it chicken? So it's just the chicken tube, no breading, no cheesy like inner part. It's just the chicken tube. And I'm like, it's filling, you know? There was something lost in there was something lost in the removing of those parts. So like I said last time, I was going to reserve judgment. I'm going to give my platinum for this um to episode 5 and give instead episode 6 a gold. And that's how I'm gonna kind of rationalize that because I was waiting to kind of see if I still felt the same way because man, Sanji's backstory is so well acted in the live action, but I also can't stop thinking about like what we lost in the pursuit to turn Baratier into 2 episodes. Because, Syrup Village, you could have done in 1 episode. I'm not gonna
No,
lie.
absolutely. There was no reason for that to have been split.
You could have done Baratier in 3 episodes and have Krieg in those episodes. Like, I really thought about it. It was like you could have done the whole thing where it's like, oh, here's Krieg pirates. We're gonna have a fight in the inside of the Baratier. We're gonna have all the effects. Uh, and we could have had that be 3 episodes, and then someone would have said, "Wait, 3 episodes would actually help Arlong Park more than Baratier." And so then I would have to go, yeah, they would have actually done 3 episodes for Arlong Park instead, included all the fights there, which are a little bit more impactful and cooler, having all the plot sequences. Maybe have an entire episode to just Nami's backstory to kind of flesh that out a little bit more. And then I'm like, yeah, there was no world in which Baratie would not have been 2 episodes, and it would not have been exactly this.
Ratier is built to be 2 sections, though. It's
Yeah,
definitely the get there up to the Mihawk fight, and then the Krieg fight into the resolution.
yeah. And so replacing the Krieg fight with a preamble fight with Arlong and the Manta Ray guy that I always forget the name of.
I'm
Uh,
blanking as well.
to be fair, all I remember is that he has ponytails and that he has
Mm.
Fishman karate. That's all that I ever remember about him. The the only reason why I remember Chu's name is because his name is a pun because he has weird lips. Like that's the only reason why I remember Chu's name. There's a reason why when it comes to the Arlong Pirates, the only one people remember is Hachi, and it's because Hachi shows up later. So it's like,
Yeah, importantly.
yeah. By the way, get ready for that character to not show up because it was too hard to animate a guy with 8 arms. uh, so so that's my impression. So what did how did you rate these episodes?
For the manga, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a silver.
Fair.
Uh, the anime, I'm going to give it a gold. I actually really liked the Krieg fight in the anime.
Again, like there are parts about the Krieg fight to enjoy. I actually like I'm gonna be weird and contrarian, and I'm gonna say that I actually preferred the manga version of the fights a little bit better because Krieg uses his stakes a lot more earlier into the fight um instead of just using it for like one barrage. But like the other reason why I we didn't bring it up, but like the absolute raw aura of Luffy covered in his own blood as he just rips out the stakes and just dropping it as he's like, was that supposed to do something? Like what? It was like doesn't even hurt. As he's again covered in his own blood as he's just ripping these stakes out.
For the Netflix series, I'm gonna give it a bronze.
Really?
Yes, bronze. The scene, like the entire premise of the episode is ruined and has a lasting effect of ruining the next couple episodes because having Arlong show up now and fight Luffy, and it's stupid because the best part of Arlong Park, the best part of Arlong Park is Luffy punching through the wall and going, "Which one of you is Arlong?" That is completely ruined now that he knows who Arlong is and they've already fought. You have
Um,
ruined the entire climactic point of Arlong Park by having Arlong show up this early and already having the fight.
I don't agree, but we will get there. You know. We will get to that discussion when we need to. So, let's see. Oh, it's right there. Would you say that this is above or below episode 1? Considering that you put both sorry, manga. Would you put the manga for this part above the above Romance Dawn or below it?
Above. Definitely, yeah, definitely above.
Oddly enough, we put both of them in around the same spot. We've actually been really consistent about where we have been putting the manga in the same order, actually.
Yeah.
Uh
The only
I
one the only one we disagreed on is that you and I had different reactions to the first episode.
yeah. Um do I like the anime of this more than the anime for Romance Dawn? I'm going to say yes cuz again, Romance Dawn is a really great like setting the stage sort of vibe. Um, but like again, I put Baratie as high of a silver as I could possibly get it. And then I still say that like because all of the stuff involving like the backstory and the goodbye scene and the fight with Mihawk, Baratie is still like one of my favorite arcs in all of One Piece. It's just that the actual fight with Krieg, if you just segment it by itself, is not the thing that I remember about this arc.
Honestly, if I could, I would also give this one a stone for the Netflix because, like, just the fact that Krieg didn't even exist in the Netflix version. What the
I
fuck?
I mean, he still showed up. He still did his like shoulder cannon thing, but I do wonder. You know, it's like I personally wonder if like I again, it's hard for me to say if I miss Krieg in the live action version because again, the parts with Krieg are not my favorite parts about Baratier's arc, but when they're missing, it feels off.
It's just further reinforcing my belief that the live action One Piece should never have happened. These changes are detrimental to the series as a whole,
Should
and the world
not
would be
have
better off.
happened? No. I feel like that the changes are lamentable, but it is serviceable of what they keep in.
I don't like the changes, and it's getting more and more annoying because now we're getting to the point where the changes are starting to snowball and make the next bits different into a degree that it doesn't even feel like the same show anymore. We're getting to the point where we're gonna not be comparing the ways the media is telling the story. We're we're dealing with two divergent stories now. One
Uh,
of them is just a live action what if scenario.
I would say that the only episode coming up that really feels like that is the actual fight in Arlong Park. And me personally, the I also feel that a bit in Loketown. Because again, we're gonna get into the my my overall problems with the way that they depict Loketown, but that is more of a personal preference, considering that I know that there's a lot of people that just habitually just skip filler. But for me, if you skip the filler of Loketown, it feels off. You know, it's like there was something important about the bar scene and like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, again, we'll get to that when we get to that. So, any final thoughts before I have to like throw this into a Adobe Premiere just so I can like stitch the two recordings together again.
I am getting to a point where I am not looking forward to the next episodes.
Uh, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast is to talk about these problems. And I honestly think if you can't look at something that you like critically and talk about the things you don't like about even things that you consider the greatest things of all time, then it's hard for you to explain why you do like them, you know? You
Yes,
have
but we're no longer at a point where I'm comparing two things that are the same.
I
I
would
am now
say
comparing One Piece to an alternate retelling of One Piece that I don't like.
I would say season 2 was a little bit closer, but, you know, We get to there when we get to there.
I suppose so.
Anyway, we'll see all of y'all next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.